If you're coming from another sculpting application outside of 3D Coat that has a number of clay brush variants, you can mimic the same type of brush behavior with clay brush in 3D Coat surface mode using different brush alphas, different ePanel draw modes, different parameters such as buildup, and even brush options in the brush options panel. Let's go ahead and zoom in here. With the first ePanel draw mode and a brush alpha that isn't necessarily soft around the edges, but isn't necessarily harsh either, I can just brush along this model and see that it gives me a fairly comparable result to the default clay brush in the sculpting application many users will be coming from. Now, if you want, you can use something like a square brush alpha, and you can adjust the spacing to something like 15. If we want more spacing, we can change that up a bit and turn our fall off down to 0. Let's turn our spacing up just a bit more. You can see we get a clay brush that is more coarse, which is sometimes a desirable result. Let's bring it up a bit more. I can turn rotate long stroke on. You can see how the clay brush responds like laying down a strip of clay. To draw a contrast, I want to click on the extrude brush, which is only going to extrude the vertices equally beneath your brush. Quite a bit of difference. If we want to create a Claybuildup variant, we can check the buildup option in the toolbar. This way, as we click and drag and continue to press down and drag about the same area, it will build up, as the name implies. So again, I'll just continue to press down a little bit harder and continue to go back and forth with my stroke, and it will build that surface up. Another option, if we want it to smooth a little bit or to prevent some of the stretching that we see, we can check remove stretching. This is available with many of the brushes. Let me zoom in just a bit. You can see how that's stretched. I'm going to right click and drag up to increase the depth level. As I press and drag, I have not yet let up from my mouse, so I'm still seeing quite a bit of stretching. But as soon as I let up, you can see how it decimated this area. Even though we had remove stretching turned on, we can further adjust this by enabling tangent smoothing. Tangent smoothing will attempt to leave the surface as it is, but just change the structure of the geometry or the topology. So let me zoom in a bit more. I'll hold down the Shift key. Okay, remove stretching and tangent smoothing. Let's turn wireframe back off. So let's do a little bit more work here. If your model is really dense, then you'll notice a slight pause at the end of your stroke. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If your model is low resolution to somewhere in an intermediate level, then the remove stretching will be rather unnoticeable. Basically, by the time you're ready to make your next stroke, it will have already performed that additional calculation. As you may be able to tell, the stroke performance is rather robust. At roughly 9 million polygons, I could get quite a bit of detail done at this level, so the brush performance is still comparable to practically any other brush you may be used to using outside of 3D Coat. One other option that's very important to remember is the Edit Curves function just to the left of your radius. You can click Edit Curves. This is the default behavior, and this means that there is very little difference when you press down on your stylus with regard to brush pressure affecting depth or the radius. With some brushes, you may want a little bit more of a change, so you might want to select this first one that will affect both the radius and the depth. Then you can adjust the pressure curve to allow a broader degree of change. So let's stick with the default. I'm going to press down lightly and then press down harder. So we have very little noticeable change, and many times that may be what you want. You want a consistent stroke. But if you do want it to change a bit, then you can modify this, bringing it down. You can add a little bit of curvature to it if you like. Okay. Now starting with very light pressure to harder pressure, you'll notice a larger change in the depth and the radius. So again, light pressure, hard pressure, light pressure again. And with tapering, you can make this much smoother, as well as checking steady stroke. A steady stroke will slow it down a bit because it's interpolating as you drag along. So slow, press down harder, then let up. Tapering just gives you a bit more control over how it tapers on either end. Okay. Let me undo several times. Once you have the clay brush modified the way you prefer and you want to store it and name it, what you can do is in the presets panel, I can go to the upper right corner, click on this list menu toggle and choose add preset. Once that's been added, it will be placed at the top of the panel. You can double click and rename it accordingly. So I'm going to move my brush away. I can bring my preset panel up wherever my cursor is at. Alternatively, you can dock it as well if you like. So again, I'm just going to pull it out and I can scale it. And then close it. If you want, you can assign a hotkey to it. There isn't one assigned to it by default, but you can hit the End key on your keyboard to make that assignment. So that's going to conclude this demonstration of the clay brush in 3D Coat Surface Mode. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.